Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining today's webcast, Upgrade Maximo, Reasons to Maintain Version Currency and Guidance on Where to Start. I'm Robin Ray, your Tivoli User Community Group Manager. As part of your community management team, I would like to encourage you to visit the community following this webcast to download this and previous presentations given to our member community. This session will cover the challenges with upgrading and explain that with good planning, budgeting, and preparing your users and system administrative team, you'll be able to confidently take the next steps toward version currency. Today's presenters are Katie Dole, IBM PM Consultant, Don Woodward, IBM GBS Area Manager, Kim Woodbury, IBM Product Manager, and Darlene Nerden, IBM Maximo System Support Engineer. Before we get started today, I would like to cover some administrative details. All phone lines are in listen-only mode. You may ask a question at any time using the chat tool, and a member of the Q&A team will answer. Today's session is being recorded, and you will be provided with a copy of the materials following today's call. If you would like to follow along on Twitter, please use hashtag #TalkMaximo. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Katie. Katie, take it away.
Thank you, Robin, and hello, everybody. And I just wanted to mention that we're going to be having, we'll kind of interrupt here and there and answer as many questions as we can today. So make sure you enter those into the chat window, and we'll be able to save that chat series of questions so that if we don't get to your question and we run out of time, we'll definitely get an answer to you later. All right, we can move on to the next slide. So you're ready to upgrade. I guess we'll start there. And so there are many considerations that come into play, and I would say most specifically in the early planning stages. So, for example, does my organization have the skills in-house to pull all of the pieces together and then carry out my plan, start to finish, during the time frame that I've identified? Is the middleware or my database platforms, other IT-related pieces, are they current, or do I also need to include them in my upgrade plans? How will my business benefit from adopting a current version of Maximo? One of the ways that I might benefit is to be able to let go of my current customizations or some of my configurations and maybe adopt some of the core product functionality instead, and that streamlines everything for future upgrade cycles. What does my budget need to look like? And the bigger question, how soon can I get it into a budgeting cycle and get it approved so that I can move forward with my planning? What is my overall justification? So being current brings the latest features to your users. It brings bug fixes to the tables, new efficiencies, and since you're paying maintenance, you receive the latest and greatest software. So that in effect is already justified. Next slide. All right, we're going to start with a question right out of the gate here. We want to know what version that you are currently on. So we have Maximo 4X, Maximo 5X, Maximo 6, and then we broke it down into Maximo 7.1, whatever the fixed pack level is, and then 7.5 if you're already on 7.5. So we'll take just a few seconds and go ahead and answer that question. All right, I think we'll move on. Oh, there are the results. All right, so we have a number of people on the call today that are already on 7.5. And the next largest group, it looks like, actually the largest group is 7.1. A few customers on 6, a few on 5, and nobody on 4. Okay, that's actually good news. All right, the next slide.
Okay, I'm going to take this one, Katie. I just wanted to go through some of the offerings that we have, some other reasons. We know a lot of people have decided to move forward, but just to re-emphasize some of these points, make sure that you're aware of some of the other benefits. So as Katie mentioned, Maximo is the market-leading solution for asset management, and you are entitled to the latest version. So the S&S payments, if you're current on your support and subscription, you are entitled to go and download the latest version of the product. And as a market-leading solution, we have that information also validated by some of the analysts that we work with. Gartner and ARC Advisory have ranked Maximo the leading solution for the last 7 years, and recently we were ranked by IDC in the energy and utility sector as the leading solution. So we have that validation as well. Also, to take into consideration here is obviously the end of support announcements of some of our older versions. So 7.1 will be ending support in April of this coming year in 2015. And so that really does mean, no more support contact through calls, opening PMRs or APRs, asking questions, and no more fixed packs will be delivered for that 7.1 version. So just want to make sure that is on your radar as well. We also have availability of a lot of new features and capabilities that you can take advantage of once you're up to the latest version that were made available with 7.5. So the Health Safety Environment Manager, Scheduler, and our new mobile solution, Anywhere. We've continued to invest in our industry solutions. So if you are currently using an industry solution or have maybe thought that might be an area you want to expand into, one of the examples I always use, it's worth looking at some of the capabilities that are offered here. One that comes up frequently is transportation. So I see that there's a lot of our customers that also have some licenses of the transportation solution to manage some of their vehicles. That comes up in universities, higher ed especially, and other organizations as well. So that's worth looking into as well. And of course, you want to make sure that you are current with the latest middleware, operating systems, browsers, and as we continue to evolve the product, those will continue to be updated. So you want to make sure that you stay current on those. And then the next slide, please. The last but not least is, our next version of Maximo is scheduled to come out at the end of this year. So the 7.6 version of Maximo with some additional functionality, expanded capabilities, user experience improvements, as well as a Cognos entitlement that is part of that offering. So those are all good reasons to take a look at what you're using currently, what capabilities, and where you want to be in the future. Let's take a look at the next slide. I think I have a couple of additional here just to emphasize some of the end of support dates. Also looking back to the Maximo 6.2, which was last September in 2013, when we also announced the 7.1. So we have been typically following this 5+3 support policy, which we have links to here that you can get all of the detailed information. And then there's an optional 3 years of extended support if you need to stay on that version while you're trying to get through and get up to the latest. And then the next slide, I think, has a broader view across, oh, boy, that came out black here. Sorry about that. We'll try to get the background updated, but the one that is circled there is obviously the 7.1 version. But the next question, of course, that we get, and with the 7.6 version having been announced, is when is 7.5 going to end of support? And so if we follow what we've typically been done, there are no plans at this time, but the earliest that announcement would be made would be September of 2017, April 2017 for a September 2018 end of support date. So that would be the 18-month notification. And that's the earliest that would happen. Okay, let's go to the next. So we'll get to our second poll question here, and just trying to understand for those that are on older versions, I guess that even including the 7.5, what is your upgrade timing? So we'll just wait for that to come up. So when do you plan to upgrade? You don't have a committed plan yet. I'm currently upgrading. I'm planning to upgrade within the next 3 to 6 months, within the next 6 to 12 months, or I'm not planning to upgrade at all, for whatever reason that might be. So let's see if we can get some answers there. And I'll just mention, don't forget, we've got the chat open if there are questions. Hopefully people have been able to dial in. I know there were some issues with the sound. Okay. All right, so we've got most people, well, I guess there's a tie here. So either within the next 6 to 12 months, or I don't have a committed plan yet. And so, yeah, that's good. We're hoping that we can get those no committed plan yet people to start thinking about it. Hopefully we'll get some information from our technical content here coming up that will help you move forward. Okay, so just a couple more minutes on kind of the expanded footprint, new capabilities that you can take advantage of. Hopefully part of this whole evolution of your use of Maximo is allowing you to expand into different areas of the product, be able to pick up some additional business processes and automate more of your business, looking at using maybe some of the inventory management or supply chain capabilities where there was a large focus in the 7.5 release, as well as a number of sort of core competencies, I guess, in the platform itself at the bottom of this slide, with things like automation scripts, being able to do imports and exports from applications, ad hoc reporting, allowing more visibility to your data out to your end user community. So being able to take advantage of all of those capabilities. The next slide, please.
Tim, we have a question about what's the best practices for keeping up to date with fixed packs.
Okay.
Okay.
I can address that. This is Darlene. We would really like to have you keep up with the latest fix pack. The fix packs do cover all of the APAR fixes, and potentially there is support for newer versions of the middleware, newer versions of operating systems, etc. We know that sometimes is hard to do with doing full regression testing that you need to do in your environment. So we would say one a year. Typically, what we do is with the 2 current releases, so right now 7.1 and 7.5, we alternate quarters for a fixed pack release. So if this quarter was 7.1, next quarter would be 7.5 and 7.1, etc. So if you do one a year, you're keeping pretty current with your fixed packs. And then within that fixed pack that you're on, we do release what we call interim fixes, or iFixes. Some people may know that as the cumulative hot fix. So if you're on a fixed pack, keeping maybe current with the iFixes within that fixed pack will get you the APAR fixes to be current in that respect. And an iFix is less intrusive and much less risk to apply an iFix in the fixed pack level to be addressing some of the APARs.
And is there somewhere that notification, where's the best place that I can find out a fixed pack's been released, or when a new iFix is available? Do you guys have, is there a favorite blog or posting or community that they should be a part of?
The support portal, if you have a profile in the portal, you can set your profile to get notifications on areas of interest. So Maximo could be one, and the fix packs are a support document, so you would get notification when the fix pack document is published to the information about the downloads. iFixes, we don't typically put a document out on every iFix. We try to do those monthly for the current fix pack level minus 1, 2 back. So those don't really get regularly published because sometimes, they might get pushed back for the testing that's been done. But on a monthly schedule, if you're current with your fixed pack, current with the last couple of fixed packs, you always can go out to Fix Central to download those, but we don't really make notifications.
Okay, so that's good. So there's a couple more that have come in. We'll address those too. So do I need to be on the latest fixed pack before I move to 7.6? So right now the plan is to support the latest version and the N-1 version of the fixed pack. So I'm not sure what we're up to on 7.5 right now. 07, 08?
We're 7.506 is current fixed pack right now.
So it would likely, by the time this comes out, we'd probably have a 7.507 and 7.506 support. So yes. And then there's the extended service for 3 years. So you would have to, I know you have to go through support and request that there is a cost involved in extending that support, but there's also a commitment on your side to an upgrade plan. And so I don't know, Darlene, if you have a lot more detail about that. I don't know how much we want to get into it, but there is kind of a qualification of, committing to an upgrade within that time period.
Yes, I don't know the details more than what you're saying, Kim.
Okay. All right, so let's get back to the presentation for a minute. I see some other questions, but let's get through a few more slides, and then we'll continue on the question and answer part. So let me just do this brief overview on 7.6. There will be other sessions like this one that are entirely focused on that version as we get closer to the release date at the end of the year, but some of the highlights, again, user experience, a new look and feel, some options for configuration, sidebar navigation, etc. Lots of focus around the analytical piece, improvements to the BERT reporting, which will still be our standard reporting tool, as well as KPI functionality, some new applications there, and capabilities, as well as I mentioned the entitlement to Cognos to provide dashboards and even additional view into your business. Crew management, service addresses, the OpenMap API on the functional side. Of course, we've expanded some of our platform support on the technology side, as well as deprecated some, and we'll provide that full list, but expanding some of the versions, so Chrome support, Mac Safari support, as well as a new installer. And then the last but not least here, of making some connected mobile access available to all your users through the bundling of every place with the Maximo entitlement. Okay, let's go on. So just a little brief on some of the add-on and extended capabilities that are options that we've had, a lot of interest in, ways that you can get even more out of your Maximo investment. The Maximo Health Safety Environment Manager, being able to track incidents within your work environment through to resolution, change management, being able to report back from a regulatory standpoint so that you're in compliance for that organization. The Maximo Scheduler has had a lot of investment over the last couple of releases. The Gantt chart view for scheduling short and long-term projects. We've extended even back in 7.5 the PM forecasting capabilities, but now adding a layer of optimization so that I can set up my constraints and have the model automatically generate a proposed schedule for me. Also kind of on the dispatching side and really tying into all those mapping capabilities and seeing where all my crews are, being able to handle that emergent work distribution. And then the next generation of mobile solutions, and so this is based on the WorkLight platform within IBM. There are several releases scheduled, one coming up this fall that will support the iOS platform. The initial was Android support. So that is focused, again, initially on work management kind of capabilities. And as we move forward, anyone who's using the current Maximo mobile offerings, the legacy ones, I guess, will have an entitlement to these new apps when they're ready so that you can move forward to this next generation. That's the protected investment, I guess, comment there. All right, let's go to the next slide. I want to make sure we get to some of the meat of this planning. So let me hand it.
All right, thanks, Kim.
Over.
I'm just going to cover a few upgrade considerations and timing. Obviously, one of the biggest questions is how long is it going to take me to upgrade? So essentially, you start with where are you starting from? That's the biggest question. If you're on Maximo 5 or the 6 platform or the 7 platform, that will obviously impact how long it will take you to get to the current version. And there may be ways to leapfrog over some of the interim steps. For example, if you were on Maximo 5, you might just go ahead and start with Maximo 7.6. Let's assume that you might go with the latest version in December. Install it, get your data there, and then kind of leave all those customizations and configurations behind for the time being, maybe only implement the ones that you absolutely need, and that could be the most efficient way to get there from several back levels from like a Maximo 5. Go live downtime limitations. I know the most obvious time to upgrade is over a long weekend or when the least number of users are on the system, and of course, without a doubt, that's going to ruin your holiday. So I guess the question is, which holiday weekend do you want to have ruined with an upgrade? How many configurations and customizations have been implemented? And when you start to look at what you've done on an older version, the question is, do I need to repeat that on the latest version? So, for example, we call one of those upgrade philosophies a like for like, meaning am I just going to go to the latest version and I only want to use the functionality there that I'm using today on the old version? So I want to keep my functionality the same. I just want to be on the latest platform. That's one upgrade plan. A business process transformation could be another, in which case you want to take that opportunity to review all of your business processes that either impact Maximo or vice versa, and decide if the new functionality and the new capabilities in Maximo better support your business processes, or maybe your business processes need to be fine-tuned to match Maximo. But at any rate, this is a good opportunity while you're in flux and while you're moving to be able to reevaluate all of those pieces. And then anything in between. Those are really both ends of the spectrum, but any combination of that. You also can evaluate using the new out-of-the-box features or using alternative methods of scripting, automation scripting that Kim mentioned earlier. So those are some of the new capabilities that can, again, streamline your implementation going forward. What are the number of integration points that you have? That's an important one, and integrations can be a bit of a tricky undertaking, so you want to be sure that you plan well for that. The size and complexity of the database. You know, it goes without saying, the more data that you bring over, the more challenging it can be to make sure that data is clean and it's going to be imported accurately and you'll be able to access it on the latest version. So it goes without saying that we would recommend archiving as one of those first steps when you're going to upgrade. What data do I absolutely need to bring over to the new platform, and what can I leave behind? And then finally, training requirements. I think sometimes training is an afterthought, and it's one of those, well, if we have time, we'll train our users. Otherwise, we'll hope that they can make the best of the new features and functionality. And that's probably one of the most important elements of an upgrade, is to be sure that your users hit the ground running and they're efficient and they're productive and there isn't this long learning curve where everybody's trying to figure it out themselves. Next slide. Some other upgrade considerations. You know, are we going to do an upgrade versus a fresh install? So when we talk upgrade, we're talking about using the scripts that come with Maximo to move you along incrementally from one version to the next. And sometimes it's through a series of fixed pack levels until you ultimately get to that target system. That may be one way of doing it. And I would say that probably on the Maximo 7.1 release, that would make sense to use the scripting. However, if you're on an earlier version, it may not make sense to use all of those scripts and try to incrementally get to 7.5 or 7.6. You might just start with a fresh install, as I was mentioning earlier, and go from there.
Yeah, like it says here, Katie, it's the quality of the data, you know, if what you have. And, you know, there could be some of that data that is worth keeping, but others that wouldn't be worth bringing over. And people can help evaluate that too. There were enough changes, for example, to things like the security model perhaps between, say, a 5 and a 7, that, trying to bring that all over and convert it, you might want to just reevaluate sort of your security profiles and recreate that when you get to the target version.
Right, absolutely. And that actually segues nicely into the next point, which is if you haven't leveraged multi-site, multi-org, and you're on a pre-7 release, that's something that can be very useful in terms of consolidating all of the multiple instances of Maximo that you may have.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm just saying that, that's another place where you evaluate sort of your business processes. And some people have decided that we want to try to have a single, best practice that we implement across the entire organizations. And there's other times when that doesn't make sense and you want to keep them all in separate organizations with different processes. So, again, back to that, are you going to do a business process evaluation kind of exercise?
Absolutely. And then custom reports. Are you using BERT yet? That's the resident report writer and reporting tool within Maximo 7. And some of you that might be on a later release of 6.2. Whatever, some of the later fixed pack levels, you may have been introduced to BERT a little bit early. There was an option back then. If not, BERT is a very powerful reporting tool, and that's something that you'll want to evaluate which reports you can use out of the box. And we always recommend start with out of the box. Use as much of that as you can and try very hard to sort of leave behind some of the customized elements of your implementation so you can take advantage of the efficiencies that out of the box brings to the table.
I guess the other piece there, too, is ad hoc reporting. So that might not have been available. So trying to put the reporting tool right into your user's hands rather than trying to maintain 20 different versions of the same kind of report just for each individual use case, put that into an ad hoc access and just get rid of all those.
Right, and for those of you not familiar with the ad hoc, it's basically being able to turn a query into a report right on screen as you're generating the query, and then you can save them too, so it's very much as on the fly as you work through your data.
Yeah, I'll do another plug for 7.6 there too. One of the enhancements was to add calculations to ad hoc reporting, which really makes that even much more viable for a lot of users.
Great. Okay. And then finally, don't forget about mobilizing your workforce. Let them take Maximo out into the field with them. And we have many options now, all of which are really well worth considering, and that functionality is evolving with every release of Maximo. So plan on an average upgrade. Remember, average can take anywhere between 3 and 12 months, depending on all the answers and the considerations to all of those topics we just covered. And the time is now to start. All right, I'm going to pass the baton. Next slide. I think Darlene's going to take it from here.
Yes, thank you, Katie. We wanted to show you here the scope of the upgrades from the different versions that we've had, starting from 4 to 5. That was a pretty big upgrade. 5 to 6.2, maybe not so big. We had an upgrade utility tied to that. That was not part of the Maximo install. Going from 6 to 7.1, that was a fairly robust upgrade as well. And then moving from when you're in the 7 family, going from 7.1 to 7.5, the scope of the upgrade is not as large. Going from 6 to 7, some of the things that Katie mentioned and Kim mentioned, decisions about your reporting. There's a lot of changes in integrations. Those are things to think about, and the scope was larger. Once you're in the 7 family, moving to the other versions in the 7 family, the upgrades are a smaller scale. They're not as robust, and the database piece is a smaller piece. The reporting is already in place. Integrations are in place, etc. Those customizations or screen changes, minor changes here and there that you might need to make to those things. So the upgrades are not as big. So looking to stay current with the version you're on to get to 7.5 to get to 7.6. Those upgrade plans may not be as big as if those customers that were starting from 4 and went to follow the history of Maximo from older versions. Next slide, please. And looking at some best practices around upgrading, you can't upgrade in place, and really you don't want to upgrade in place. You want to test and test again and test again and test again and test again and test again, so that when you go live, your downtime window will be as small as you can make it. So you're going to need to have an environment that, one, you can run all your tests in, have a test one, a dry run, a trial, a pre-prod, and that pre-prod may become what your production hardware and environment may be. So you need to look at things around that as well in an infrastructure point of view. Do you need to get better hardware? In the 7 family, do not install in a 32-bit environment. 64-bit for performance, so if you're on older versions and you have that hardware, now's the time to look at 64-bit hardware, 64-bit OSs, etc. You'll have newer versions of your application server, web serial logic, so you're going to build a new environment to house the newer, more current, middleware and infrastructure. Maybe it's an opportunity to look at maybe at your network layer. Do you have remote users? How are we connecting now? Are there better means now out there as options? So you want to look at the whole environment. You're going to want a new database instance. Again, you're going to test and test and test. Have a clone of your production database. Always run your test against a copy of your production database, not an older training database you had. You want your current data, your current screens, your current reports, everything current, so that you know what to expect during the upgrade process. So you're going to create a new database instance and potentially move to a newer version of whatever database platform that you're on. And like I said, and I can't say it enough, test, 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 test. You don't want to have your downtime holiday weekend ruined because you didn't go through and realize, oh, we have unique constraints here, or we added a column or an attribute that now is a table or a column or an attribute, whatever, that Maximo 7.5 also was adding, and now we have to rethink how we're going to maintain that data so that the upgrade can proceed. Do your remediation throughout all the iterations. You want that go live time to be streamlined, no surprises on the data side. You have all your reports already designed, your screens already set, your integrations defined, everything ready to go. So when your downtime, it's really just the time it takes to run through the process, not to figure out and fix any errors or anything like that. And during the whole process, you want to look at incorporating the end user champions in your testing. You want to have buy-in from the business that, yes, we want to move and spend the time, the money, the resources to upgrade. These are the great things we're going to get in the current version of Maximo, these different bits of functionality and features that we have. We want to take full advantage of that. So, pull the business in, pull those champions into the testing. So that's going to help eliminate issues in the process, issues early in the process. They can go out and in their departments and their teams, start talking about Maximo, the new versions, what we're going to be able to do. Start maybe looking at your business processes to maybe redefine some things. And you want to look at performance testing. Do some real-world load testing on the product. Don't, have 5 people in a room running through Maximo and say, oh, yeah, this is going to be great when we roll out for 1,000 users. Do some performance testing in your upgrade plan. Always think about performance. Performance is around queries. Every place that you have a query, in reports, in conditions, in workflows, in list, the queries on the list tab, start center result sets. Always think about efficiency in all your queries. Think about how much you're going to let your users do in that respect.
So that might tie, Darlene, sorry, that some of that ties, I think, to the question that came in about doing the infrastructure assessment, which was one of the earlier steps. So, a site, they're asking about a site audit that should take place first to make sure your network and other infrastructure are up to the job. So I think that kind of
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, an upgrade of Maximo is a great time to look at the whole environment of Maximo. It's not just the application itself. It's from the bottom of the pyramid that we talk about of things to look at. It's the infrastructure layer, it's the hardware, it's the OSs, it's the application servers, it's the database, it's everything in the mix that you have. And is this the time that we start upgrading some of those other layers as well as the Maximo piece? That's a very valid point. Doing a site assessment is always good at an upgrade time. Another question: the load from earlier Maximo 75 is considerably different. I'm not sure in what context you're talking about load, Jonathan. If you can clarify. There's new features and functionality moving from a 32-bit environment to a 64-bit, if you're talking load as in a number of concurrent users that can be running on a single Maximo JVM. Yes, the load would be different because now when you move to a 64-bit environment, how the memory space can be utilized, you can allocate more memory to your JVMs, so then you can have more users than you did in older versions that were only running a 32-bit environment, if that's what you're talking about. Another question: when you upgrade, how long steps take? Absolutely. Yeah, when you're going through your test, and that's a great reason why you want to test. When you're going from version, we'll say 6.2 to 7.1, you have to run integrity checker. How long is that going to take? When we do it the next run, let's fix all the things we found first. How long does validation take? How long does the upgrade step take? How long does update DB take? How long does it take between every single step to back up your database? Because you don't want to have to go back all the way from the beginning. How long does it take to do the ear deploy? How long does it take to do everything? You're absolutely right. We can map out everything, and when you go for your go live, you're going to know pretty much how long the go live is going to be, and to your point, when to go out and be able to have lunch for everybody. That's pretty much it. Well, Maximo 7.6 we optimized for Windows Server 2012, but 7.5 reminders doesn't play well with 2008. Yeah, we will be supporting 2012, I believe, at this point. I don't want to speak too much of support of anything in 7.6. It's not really been announced yet. Kim, if you want to address those kind of things, please feel free, but I'm not going to be talking about any of the specifics around 7.6 myself. So if we move on, so we want to focus on your data migration first. The reports, the UI, the integrations, after you're at the target environment. If you're going from multiple versions up to 7.5, you don't need to look at your screens when you stop at 7.1. You don't need to address your reports at 7.1, etc. Get the database upgraded, excuse me, to the 7.5 level, and then that's when you start looking at your integrations, the reports, the screen changes, anything else, any custom code that you have to migrate over. You don't need to do that at the intermediate step. Can't talk, sorry. You just need to look at that at the target version. Don, I'll turn it to you for any other comments you'd like to make on the best practices from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. I guess a couple of things that you mentioned earlier. Obviously, doing a version upgrade is an opportunity to bring in new infrastructure, new servers, et cetera. So you should take advantage of that. And obviously, if you're coming off of 6 or 7.1, going to 7.5 or 7.6, the hardware and software requirements have increased in terms of the processor and memory requirements to run the app server, as well as the underlying OS. So as kind of what's been mentioned in the chat, for example, in 7.6 we're going to be supporting Windows Server 2012 directly, so you can install directly onto that particular operating system. So it's important to take advantage of that and to use an upgrade as an opportunity to bump up your infrastructure to support the new version.
I guess the other one that I was thinking about here when we were talking about that infrastructure, I think there's other opportunities to run like the report server separately and do clustering and I think those have expanded over time as we've gone from release to release, right?
Yes, so you can logically or physically cluster Maximo now, more so than ever. You can break up individual components such as cron tasks, BERT reporting, the integration framework. Those can all be broken up either, server or on a separate physical server. So there are opportunities to re-architect your solution as well as part of the upgrade process.
Yeah, and that will help with performance and all of those other things, right, that will help with user acceptance. And, yeah, I know that there's even some other report-only server options for BERT with 7.6.2. That's why it was on my mind.
Right.
And on the topic of performance, too, this is also a good opportunity to consider monitoring tools. If you don't already have some kind of a dashboard in place, remember you might be moving from a 32-bit to a 64-bit environment, and performance is going to be really important. So consider, if you don't already have monitoring tools, putting something in place so that you're always on top of that curve.
Right.
Exactly. Next slide.
All right, I'll jump in here. From a project perspective, let's assume that we're going to undertake an upgrade project. One of the most important elements of it really is spending all of the time that you need to upfront and really plan well. And a best practice is anywhere from 30 to 50% of the overall time of your upgrade itself should be spent on planning. And obviously, you're going to create plans for all of the areas that you're responsible for reporting to your management on. So, for example, there's an overall project plan. How is this going to unfold? Who's involved? What are the phases? What's our start time frame and our finish time frame? Obviously, cost management is a big piece. You want to manage your budget carefully and know what pieces you might be consuming in-house versus outside your company or outside your department. Quality management, what are those metrics? What's the minimum transaction time frame that you have to achieve in order for it to be acceptable at the end user level? Or what are some quality metrics that you need to meet with reporting and whatnot? Risk management, there's a big one. There may be risks associated with who you have available and when they're available, and therefore your schedule is very much dependent on their being ready and able to work on a piece of that upgrade cycle. There are a lot of risks that need to be managed during an upgrade. Also, stakeholder management. These are all the people that are on the receiving end, all of your users, your consumers, all of those people that look at the new version and say, yeah, this is great, or I'm sorry, I'm not getting it. So whatever that stakeholder management is, managing expectations and making sure that you have a way to meet them, and then following through to be sure that there's a satisfactory thumbs up at the end. Transition to operations plan. So the upgrade itself might take many months, but then you need to know when the handoff takes place and who's going to be on the other end of that handoff to receive kind of the operation day-to-day maintenance of the system. If you're going from a Maximo 5 or a 6 to 7.5 or 6, you're going to want to review some of the new administrative tools and functionality and capabilities and make sure that everybody is up to speed on what that looks like and who's going to handle that. Finally, be realistic about the level and availability of your in-house skills. If you don't have someone who's a subject matter expert in one area, make note of that and make sure that you don't just try to cover it or sweep it under the rug and hope that all comes out in the end. And when time is running short, the testing cycle, as Darlene mentioned, test, test, test. It should never be an afterthought. You want to stick to your plan, and you want to make sure that you test performance. You might want to test functionality with some scripts. You may want to test, user load, all of these different areas. You may even want to do a week of beta testing where you turn it on for 5 power users and let them pound away at it and sort of come away with what they think the system is going to do and some feedback. Also include product champions in all planning and delivery. Users that have had the experience from version to version, those that are that use the system on a day-to-day basis, make sure that you include them. They are your key stakeholders, and you want to make sure that they're incorporated, their views and their feedback is incorporated throughout. And then finally, factor in time for practice runs. of the various processes, including validation and loading, and Darlene mentioned those. You know, the integrity checker and the validation, you want to run those over and again until they come clean. Don't just run it once and then say, well, we had a few problems, but we'll deal with that when the time comes. You want to make sure that you factor all that in, and that's part of your plan as well. Leave yourself enough time to repeat it 3 times and factor that into your schedule. Next slide. So this is just a sample of a generic upgrade plan, very high level, but all the detail that Darlene was talking about, that's where you plug that into each of these high-level summary steps, and you come up with a project plan that outlines all of the steps. So this is really meant to be just kind of a checklist of all the areas that we want to consider and use for your planning outline. Make sure that you learn from those who have gone before you. If you know that there is someone who has been through an upgrade and they had lessons to share that they documented, make sure that you take a look at that as well. And that's another good point about documenting everything as you go. There can never be too much documentation. Meeting notes are very valuable. Every time you come up against an issue that you didn't expect, document it. I mean, all this gets archived and it makes the next round much easier. Network with your colleagues and your peers. And then it's a really good idea to let IBM know that you're starting your upgrade or there's a specific cycle that you're, you know, a little bit tentative about. So let somebody know on the other end, and it helps to make sure that somebody might be able to troubleshoot you sooner than later, especially if they know you're about to embark on a specific step that might be a bit tricky. Next slide.
So Katie, I don't know about anybody else, but I've got a conference error, and I'm not seeing the slides anymore.
I see them. I still see them.
Okay, it might just be us here in Littleton then. Okay, keep going.
Okay, next step. I guess I'm passing this back to Darlene.
Yes, thank you. You really want to look at, as Katie and us, we've been talking, look at your in-house skills honestly. Do you have the skills to go through and do the upgrade on your own? In multiple different areas. You want to make sure that on the database perspective, you have a good DBA. You know, after the upgrade, you'll want to compress the database again. You want to do your update statistics. You know, maybe in the defining queries, indexes will need to be added, to be able to do show plans. You want that skill set. And a knowledge of our upgrade utilities. If you've gone through upgrades from previous versions, you're very familiar with our upgrade utilities. If you're new to the upgrade process, understanding of, we mentioned an integrity checker. That goes through and validates not the data integrity, but the structural, I'll say, integrity of the database in things like Maximo says a column is 8 characters, but in the database it really says it's 10. Indexes are missing, same as relationships. Validation validates that the database can be upgraded. Any errors, as Katie said, those need to be addressed. Moving on. So you need an understanding of our utilities and then how to address any errors reported during those utilities. You need a good understanding of our installation process. If you're upgrading from, we'll say 6 to 7.1 to 7.5, you know, it's a 2-step upgrade. You need to install the 7.1 product. You need to install the middleware. You know, configure all that to set everything up. You need to do the same thing at the 7.5 level. So an understanding of the install process, understanding of the middleware layer. If you're looking at, you know, maybe migrating from WebLogic to WebSphere, going from 6 to 7, do you have some skill sets in WebSphere to be able to create JVMs, understand memory settings, do ear deploys, those kind of things. Looking at your report designs, do you have the skills? You know, BERT is potentially going to be new if you're upgrading from an older version to the 7 family. Understanding of BERT and to be able to migrate your reports and design reports in the BERT tools. If you have customizations in your 6, 7.1, whatever world, Java code, you know, have some Java skills to be able to move those migrations, those customizations, and evaluate those customizations. Is the functionality in Maximo 7.5, do we not need these customizations? The integration framework, there's a lot of changes between 6 and 7. In the integration side, evaluate those. Do we need all of them? Maybe there's better ways to do it. Now we can do things with web services. Maybe that's the better option, to be able to understand the communication from your the applications you're integrating to and from. And you need to have a Maximo administrator, someone who understands how to set up security groups, how to do automation scripting, how to do screen changes with application designer, etc., those types of functions. So really assess, honestly. And if you're lacking in some skills, maybe that's the point when you need to look to IBM resources, IBM business partners to help with the process. We want to have a successful upgrade, a successful rollout at the end, so really look at those skills. And then, from that assessment, like I said, determine if you need outside assistance. IBM has services, and we have multiple business partners that could help you with your upgrades. And you may look to a combination of in-house and external resources. You're really, really great at the report side of things, but maybe some Java coding, you're not as great in the skill set, so you need some help with that component. So you could look to a hybrid rollout or upgrade process. Next slide. Don, I'm going to turn that over to you for the poll question.
Yeah, sure. So as far as upgrades go, a lot of our clients can do the entire upgrade process themselves. We also have, obviously, IBM offers services in this area for both technical and functional assistance with the upgrade. We have business partners, IBM business partners that can do that type of work, et cetera. So our question to you is, do you have a sense of who will be performing your upgrade? And possible answers are primarily in-house staff, so you'll be handling that primarily in-house yourselves. 2, primarily IBM consulting services. 3, primarily through an IBM business partner. And lastly, primarily a third-party consulting firm. So just looking for your response to that poll question. Okay, so our result from that was almost 50% of you are going to be handling this primarily with your in-house staff. 11% will be using IBM consulting services. A larger percentage, about 26%, will be going through an IBM business partner. And then about 15% are going to be using a third-party consulting firm. So thanks for your responses to that. We can move on to the next slide.
Yeah, why don't you keep going on that one, Don?
Okay. So in terms of next steps, so where would you go from here? And we kind of talked about this internally as a group, and here's what would be our suggestions. First, you want to obtain the most current version or upgrade of Maximo, and obtain that through Passport Advantage. So right now, you can, if you're current on your software entitlements, you can go out to Passport Advantage and get Maximo 7.5. You can download that. That includes the upgrade utilities from version 7.1 within that. So we'd recommend you go ahead and get that. That'll allow you to look over the documentation and actually create a test install of 7.5. So the next step we'd recommend is to actually build a sandbox of 7.5 with that downloaded media, as well as 7.6 when it comes out in December. This would allow you to at least develop a familiarity with the 7.5 application, what the screens look like, and get your feet wet, as it were, around the new version. And lastly, we would recommend performing what we call a trial upgrade. This would just be a first pass upgrade where you could either attempt to do it or complete it end-to-end, where you actually take your current database and run a trial upgrade on it. And that will give you the opportunity to look at your data in the new version and get a sense for how that data came over. If you had custom screens, for example, in 7.1, which of those screens came over, which may need to be rebuilt, et cetera, and just give you a better feel for how large or how complex that upgrade might be. And then from there, you can make a technical assessment of how to proceed by looking at your resulting data, as I mentioned, your screens, what kind of reports they have in 7.5 through BERT, and which ones you may need to recreate, as well as any integrations that you may have that need to be moved over. We can go to the next screen. Okay, so we have a poll question in terms of contact requested that we're going to put out there. So why don't we go ahead and ask that poll question? Okay, so if any of you are interested in further one-on-one discussion regarding your upgrade plans or challenges, would you like to be contacted? And if so, who would you like to contact you? So we have three choices here. One would be an IBM Maximo Software Solutions representative, such as Katie or Kim or Darlene or myself, or an IBM business partner, or you would not like to be contacted at this time.
Yeah, and that's just, again, we'll say it even again, just to further the discussion. So, this is not a commitment for anything. We just want to offer our assistance, that we can help answer some additional questions about your specific situation. It's hard with an audience this large to get every sort of nuance, so we can have some one-on-one discussions. So, yep. Well, if you there's a large number of people that aren't ready at this time, but if you change your mind, we'll share with you our contact information. So we have a couple of there's a couple more slides here. We just got 4 minutes, so let's Katie, you want to just touch on this for a moment?
Sure. As I mentioned, training is not an afterthought, so take advantage of what we have. There are some options at this link here. We have a range of courses, anything from navigation through BERT report writing, whatever you might want, new features, administration, and those are all available from IBM Business Partners, so check out the link and contact us if you have questions on that. And then the next slide, we just wanted to include, as always, lots of resources that are available to you, and these are links to the Upgrade Resource Center. So if you don't find an answer to your question in one of these areas, don't hesitate to call one of us, and we can find an answer for you and help you take the next step, whatever that is. And the next slide. Even some more. There's never a shortage of information, as you can see.
Yeah, and I think someone asked earlier about the configuration matrix. So that one's a very popular one. It will list all of the middleware requirements for all of the versions of Maximo. I guess the other one, just from a recent question, the preview site, that currently takes you to a version of 7.5, and that gets refreshed frequently. Darlene, you can correct me here, but I would think that when 7.6 does get released, that we will all have a preview site for that as well.
Correct.
Good point, and that's if you don't have time or before you get your sandbox pulled together, go ahead and send your users to that site and have them take a look. I mean, it's a good way for them to just start playing with the new look and feel. And then finally, last slide, I believe, is just who you're going to call. So again, we're available to help answer questions and help you take the next step, whatever that is. So this is our contact information.
Okay, let's just get these last couple of questions in the last 2 minutes. So, Dawn, I think for you, does the sandbox need to be installed on systems that meet the hardware-software requirements, or can we install on less than systems?
I would say you want to definitely meet the minimum for a sandbox or a test, unless you're willing to put up with some, sluggish performance. I would strive to meet the minimum requirements for, just a sandbox. That would be, I think, 2 cores, and I think it's 6 gigs of RAM for the app server. So I would strive to at least meet the minimum.
Yeah, I would add to that, depending on, what you're using the sandbox for, if you're going to do any sort of multi-user work in the sandbox, then you want to look to that. If the sandbox is there to test against an out-of-the-box environment to verify if an issue you're seeing is with some customization you've done versus something you're seeing in out-of-the-box, maybe that doesn't need to be as, as robust. So depending on how you're going to use that sample, you want to look for the kind of resources you want allocated to it.
Okay, and then I was trying to answer, so Zuli missed a link, so if you let me know what that is, we'll post it in the chat. Donnie, when can we expect a Maximo 7.6 What's New link? When will be included in the configuration matrix? So all that information we will put out at the time that we announce the release, so at the general availability. Prior to that, we will be sharing some information through sessions like this. And if you want to contact us, we can kind of give you a what's planned. But officially, that will all be posted, at GA at the end of the year. And this presentation, Mr. Bandy, hello, this is recorded, so this will be posted out on the Tivoli user community as posting, and I believe the slides will be available there too. I don't know, Robin, are you on? Do you want to confirm that for everyone and just kind of wrap us up?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for everybody spending the hour with us, and a special thank you to Katie, Dawn, Kim, and Darlene for offering your time and sharing your knowledge with us. Kim was absolutely right. This will be posted in the Tuck, so please feel free to visit there where we post this recording, and there'll be other recordings that perhaps you might be interested in. Also, you can join the forum discussion group on topics we discussed on today's call. So just while everybody's exiting the call and the conference is ending, we always want to send this out to our attendees to see if anybody wants to be involved in our Tivoli user community. So if you're interested in contributing anything to the community, whether it becoming a blogger, contributing on a white paper, presenting at one of the user group meetings, or presenting a webcast such as what we've done today, just feel free to vote as you're exiting out of the poll. This is not a commitment. This is just a way for us to reach out to you, give you a little bit more information, see what you're interested in also. But, yeah, we thank everyone for attending. This concludes today's conference. You may now disconnect, and hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Hey guys.